Whenever Nick Kyrgios makes headlines, everyone knows that it's almost always because he messed up somewhere, and this time is no different. It looks like the star tennis player always ends himself up in legal trouble somehow, and in today's video, we're getting into his latest escapade, plus all the updates from the Australian Open. First up, here's what happened this time. Things seem to be going fine for Kyrgios in Australia. He just played his first match at the Australian Open, and plenty of people had their money on him to win the whole thing this time around. There's no doubt that he's crazy good at the sport. He's just not as good at following the law. After he showed up in Melbourne for the Grand Slam tournament, paparazzi pictures surfaced of him and his girlfriend, Justine Hotze, and they looked like innocent pictures of a happy couple at first glance. The two were riding around the city on an e-scooter ahead of the Open, and anywhere else it would have been okay. That is until people noticed that neither Kyrgios nor Hotze were wearing helmets. Personal safety wouldn't have been much of an issue anywhere else, but they were in Victoria, where the law says that anyone on an e-scooter has to be wearing a helmet. It might not be that dangerous at first glance, but e-scooters can reach speeds of 20 kilometers per hour, which means that there's definitely some risk of an accident. An Australian news anchor, Todd Woodbridge, was covering the Open the next day, and he said it best, it wasn't a good look. Kyrgios has a history of being in trouble with the law outside of the court, and not following the rules that well when he's on it. Kyrgios didn't directly comment on the situation, but Aussie basketball star Andrew Bogut posted in support of him, to which he replied that it was too much. Victoria Police put out a statement saying that they were aware of it and that they'd been taking action against him. But now we have to talk about the even bigger news. The most Nick Kyrgios thing ever is that legal trouble is only the smallest thing that's going on with him right now. There's much bigger news about the player, and it's something nobody saw coming. When the Australian Open started, Kyrgios was first lined up to be playing against Roman Safiullin on Tuesday, but that ended up never happening. He withdrew from the tournament on Monday, shocking fans and tennis authorities all over the world. The reason was a valid one. He's dealing with a bad knee injury right now, and he's been replaced in the draw by Denis Kudla. He seemed to be dealing with it well, saying injury was just a part of the sport, and he even mentioned another star while he was at it. Thanasi Kokkinakis has been injured many times before, but he's been able to pull it back together and start playing at a high level again. Kyrgios has no doubt that he'll bounce back as well, regain his strength, and start playing amazing tennis again. He was obviously upset since it's his home Open, and he has a lot of memories playing some of the best tennis of his career at the Happy Slam. On top of that, he was definitely one of the favorites to win the tournament, which just makes it worse that he has to sit it out. Fans will remember his fantastic performance at the 2022 Australian Open, where he and Kokkinakis found their way to the doubles title together. Kyrgios had a great year ahead of it, making his way to the finals at Wimbledon and winning the City Open. So what exactly is keeping him off the court this time? As fans will already know, the Aussie had plans to go compete in the Open, and everyone was betting on him to win it all as well. But right before the tournament was scheduled to start, the player started feeling some pain in his knee and went to go get it checked out. An MRI revealed that there was a perimeniscal cyst growing on his left leg, which happened after he tore his meniscus, probably while playing or training. Will Maher, his physio, explained everything, and it's not looking too good. Maher said the injury wasn't that significant because it wasn't going to end or even affect his career that much. In fact, even though they'd found the cyst already, they were still trying to find a way to get him back on the court in time for the Open. Kyrgios was willing to try anything, and he even let the doctors try and drain the cyst for him so he could be back to playing as soon as possible. Sadly, no matter how many injections he took to his knee, it just wasn't going to happen. When he showed up in Melbourne, he tried everything to get back on court, and his doctor was hopeful that the procedure would have helped things along. But his knee just kept giving him issues, and with that kind of soreness, he knew he couldn't be playing. Maher went on to say that they made the right decision withdrawing, and the priority was to make sure he could take on the long matches of the tournament without damaging himself more. For now, he's scheduled to have the cyst removed in his hometown of Canberra. Next, here's why everyone's heartbroken over the withdrawal. It makes sense that no one's more upset than Kyrgios himself that he's had to sit this one out, but the fans are even more heartbroken. That's because literally everyone thought he was going to win the tournament this time, especially because he played so well last year and only got better as the year went on. In fact, one of the biggest stars to speak up about the situation was Ken Rosewall himself, aka the youngest ever player to win the Australian Open around 70 years ago. As one of the biggest names in tennis history, the man knows what he's talking about, and even the coin used in the toss was made in his honor. He's been just as upset as everyone else when Kyrgios messed up, but he was hoping to see the Aussie native win the cup this time around, especially after his insane performances at both Wimbledon and the US Open last year. That isn't to say that he loves the guy. He's been open about this criticism of the things Kyrgios does on the court, but that didn't stop him from speaking out in support. He said that Kyrgios could definitely rise to the occasion and that he had the ability to win the whole thing. He even cited Nick's injury, saying that's held him back from being able to train a lot this time around, but he still believed that he could win the tournament. He even spoke for the entire Australian tennis population when he said that everyone wants to see him play well and win. Moving on, let's talk about the new Kyrgios. Even though he'll be sitting out the tournament this time around, Kyrgios seems to have some newfound motivation for the game. Just when we thought he couldn't get any better at what he does, he explained just what's changing in his life and his general outlook on tennis, and it might be a good thing for him. Back in 2014, when he was only 19, he managed to beat Rafael Nadal, one of the sport's biggest legends. That's when everyone knew that the new kid was meant to be a legend himself, but Kyrgios started having some issues soon after. He had a huge problem with binge drinking, but even though those were the low points of his career and personal life, Kyrgios thinks he should have been more selfish if he wanted to win a Grand Slam. It might sound confusing, but the star thinks that the media has been making his on-court behavior look much worse than it actually is. He thinks he manages to stay pretty level-headed most of the time, but the media only shows the parts where he messes up and none of the work he actually puts into it. Now, the selfish Kyrgios is trying to focus more on himself, saying he didn't do that enough in the past. In fact, he's even dropped the idea of having a coach, saying he knows his game best. The media was wondering if that new selfishness also meant a ban on sex, to which he simply replied, "Oh, geez, no." But he'll definitely be self-reflecting a lot more and trying to deal with anxiety off court as well. Finally, there's no drama off the court here. Tennis might have to stay professional on the court, but off court, there's often drama and some feuds that pop up from time to time, especially when it comes to interviews that fans think are shady. Most recently, everyone thought there was a rift between Nick Kyrgios and his fellow tennis player, Alex de Minaur. De Minaur was also a favorite going into the tournament, but when he was asked to comment on Kyrgios' withdrawal, he had nothing to say. He even seemed a little upset when the name was brought up, and later revealed that he hadn't even spoken to Kyrgios in the days leading up to the tournament. In fact, his team even chose to block any questions about him, which got fans wondering if something was up. But Kyrgios has cleared things up completely, and he had nothing bad to say about his fellow Aussie. He said that he and Demon, as he calls de Minaur, have a very special relationship. He talked about the past when they'd played at the Davis Cup together, and he seemed to have some pretty happy memories of it. The two have only played together once at the 2022 Canadian Open, and Kyrgios was the one who walked away with the victory there. He managed to finish up with a straight sets win, and even de Minaur and the Aussie captain Leighton Hewitt said that they'd tried to convince Kyrgios to join the Davis Cup team last year. But there's really no beef at all, since Kyrgios also revealed that de Minaur had come up to him and said he was sorry about the injury. He ended it by saying that he had a lot of respect for him and called him a close mate. That's a wrap for this video. Did you see any favorites on this list? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.